This is the Appian 17.1 product announcement webinar. Before we get into the meat of Appian 17.1 though, let's talk a little bit about Appian World. So if you haven't heard, we have our annual Global User Conference in April, and a big change this year. Instead of being in Washington, D.C., which we've had every single year since 2008, I believe, we've changed it off to the West Coast in San Francisco at the Hyatt Regency in Embarcadero. It's going to be, again, on April 3rd to April 5th. Really look forward to seeing everyone there. It is the go-to conference if you're a practitioner of Appian or want to learn the latest and greatest features with the Appian product. And of course, we have a lot of great activities planned for you. First, special guest speakers. We have Ben Saunders, who's a world record-breaking polar explorer, going to be presenting some really unique aspects of exploring some of the farthest reaches of the world we have today. And of course, how to really motivate your teams, motivate your structure to achieve such impossible goals. And then, of course, also Marshall Van Alstyne, who's a co-author of Platform Revolution and professor at Boston University, going to be speaking about digital transformation and really adapting to the rapid pace of digital technologies as they are today and how to grow your business in this new digital world. But along with the special guest speakers who will be keynoting on both the Tuesday and the Wednesday sessions for Appian, we're going to have a lot of great content for you. So if you want to see the detailed content, of course, there's the agenda at appianworld.com. But we have pre-conference product training, which is going to be a register upfront only. So there's a limited seating for the pre-conference training if you would like to attend that on Monday, April 3rd. We additionally are going to have dedicated Agile training. So if you want to refine your skills on Agile development techniques, there's going to be actually an independent company called Agile 6, who's an expert in Agile methodologies, who's going to be presenting or actually training your organization on exactly how to achieve agility inside your organization. And then, of course, hands-on workstations with new product, one-on-ones with the product managers to ask more deeper questions about how the Appian product works and what's on our future roadmap plans. Special hands-on activities. We have something really special planned here. Look for some announcements within the next week or two about exactly what that's going to be. We're really excited to have a very unique event at Appian World this year that I'm sure you'll have never experienced at any other conference before. Product track sessions, of course. We're going to be talking about 17.1 today, but of course, right around the corner is 17.2. As we know, we have those quarterly release cycles. So again, 17.2 is going to be a big theme of Appian World along with 17.1. If you want to learn or be first to learn what's in 17.2, again, that's going to be presented at Appian World during the product sessions. And finally, industry and business strategy sessions. If you're more on the business side, we have dedicated tracks for financial services, insurance, pharmaceutical, life sciences, healthcare, really to talk more about not just the technology, but adapting the technology to unique challenges inside your specific industry. And finally, of course, Appian World registrations available, open. We have about 6 weeks left to really register, so encourage you, check out appianworld.com. It is one of the most affordable conferences out there at just $375 per person. And a lot of our customers have been taking advantage of the Register 5 Get Unlimited Passes offer. So that simply means that if you sign up 5 people from your organization, you could sign up as many as you like, 20, 30, 40, 50. We have one organization with 50 plus people planning to attend Appian World. That simply means that seats are going to be filling up fast. So encourage you, lock in your slots. We expect to maybe be reaching capacity at that hotel. So make sure you register before about 2 weeks out at the minimum before Appian World on April 3rd and 5th. Finally, as I said before, Hyatt Regency, San Francisco, right in the heart of the financial district in San Francisco, walking distance to the piers, and a great dinner event activity at the San Francisco Exploratorium. Learn more at appianworld.com. So that's the Appian World discussion, but let's talk about what we're talking about today, Appian 17.1. As you know, we're going to give you a preview of our detailed product roadmap. We have 4 releases planned this year, 17.1 in the first quarter, 17.2 in the April-May timeframe, 17.3 in that July-August timeframe, 17.4 in that Q4 timeframe. So very predictable release cycles. If you'd like to learn exactly what's in each of those releases, check out the release notes, attend the product announcement webinars as you are doing right now, and of course, attend Appian World to find out the details of 17.2 as the first preview of that release coming out in the Q2 timeframe. But let's talk a little bit more about Appian 17.1. 17.1, if you missed the announcement, was released on January 27th for GA availability. If you're an on-premise customer or a partner working with the software, you can download it today off Appian Forum. But today also we're going to talk about the user, designer, and administrator sections for the Appian 17.1 release. One last note on this, if you are a cloud customer, our cloud customers are typically going to be upgraded about 4 to 6 weeks after a GA release. So expect as a cloud customer to receive that upgrade to 17.1 in the late February to early March timeframe, about 2 to 4 weeks out from today. But of course, if you'd like to schedule that, if you want to say, I want 17.1 on an exact date, please go ahead and submit a support ticket with Appian Forum. We'll be happy to work with you to make sure that an upgrade occurs at a schedule to meet your convenience. But let's dive right into the end user features. Now, if you attended Appian around the world last fall or saw the 16.3 announcements in the Q4 timeframe last year, we have a big modern UI initiative, which is restyling the entire Appian product. So the modern UI initiative, of course, is going to take your existing interfaces and overlay an entirely new experience for you.
Appian's customers use Sail as their toolbox when designing their UIs. That's why we constantly gather feedback about real-world requirements and use that data to inform our product plans for the Sail framework. We've heard your requests for greater layout control to help you design more efficient screens for your users' work. You've also asked us for rich contemporary component styles to help communicate your brand. We're excited to tell you what's coming in 2017 for the next generation of Sail. In future product releases, we'll introduce you to new Sail layouts that will provide much greater flexibility in how you use screen space, allowing you to fill the page with the ideal arrangement of content and controls. New Sail components will make it easy to create beautiful UIs around images, video, and styled text. But first, we want to tell you what's coming soon in the Appian 17.1 release. We have completely rebuilt all of our Sail components for the web. All of your interfaces, that's your task and action forms, record views, and reports, will automatically be upgraded across our web environments of Tempo, Sites, and Embedded. You'll likely first notice the modernized styling. We've adopted cleaner lines, more legible typography, and subtle use of animations to bring the appearance of Sail components up to date. You'll also have new opportunities to represent your brand using color. In addition to the existing theming controls, we've added a configurable accent color to highlight key interface elements such as links, primary style buttons, and selected items. You'll also find usability enhancements to components. Multiple selection dropdowns are easy to use without needing special keys. Sections are collapsible with a much bigger click target, and chart legends can be used to filter data. With the 17.1 release, we're enabling even more users to do their work in Sail UIs by supporting the latest accessibility standards. We're also extending the reach of Sail by adding responsive layouts. While users can continue to install our iOS and Android apps for a great experience, now, when they visit the web interface from a mobile browser, the UI will adjust to fit the screen. Your Sail interfaces will receive these benefits without modification. Upon upgrading to 17.1, your web UIs will be displayed with modern styling, as well as usability, accessibility, and responsiveness enhancements. In this release, the mobile app experience remains unchanged, as do news and the designer experience. The 17.1 release will also upgrade the web UIs for record navigation. We've moved record list filters from the left bar to the top of the page in order to give you even more space to show record attributes and grid columns. We've also switched from filter links to dropdowns to reduce scrolling of long lists. Behind the scenes, we've used Sail to build this revamped UI so we can more easily support different types of filtering controls in the future. When you navigate to a record, you'll notice that we've also moved the record view tabs from the left bar to the header. Once again, this gives you a wider page for your content. While the changes in this release mostly have to do with restyling and rearranging existing capabilities, the complete overhaul beneath the surface prepares us for even more exciting changes to come. We look forward to speaking to you again soon about the next set of Sail improvements, more tools aimed at providing new levels of layout flexibility and visual appeal.
So, first, updated component styling. The most important change to the modern UI effort is going to be the updated component styling, going from the old UI architecture to the new one. Most important thing to know about the updated component styling is that the layout of your interfaces as well as the functionality of those interfaces remains the same. You don't need to do anything to start taking advantage of modern UI. When you upgrade to 17.1, it will automatically start applying the modern UI skin to all your existing sale interfaces. So from that perspective, what to expect? So in the background, we see an example of a form that was designed in the older Sail UI look and feel. You can see there's a change of the font structure, some subtle changes such as the selection or the section header has a larger click area. I can see also it's bolder, easier to click on. And there's also a color being applied, a color not only being applied to the section header, but also that color around the selected item, such as the selected customer field right there. That's what we call the accent color. The accent color is a configurable color now inside the Tempo and Embedded experience, which allows you to modify the exact color of highlights, milestone progress bars, as well as section headers and button controls to emphasize your own personal color for your brand. So most important thing, nothing you need to do. Modern UI automatically applies. Now you're going to get a lot of extra features as well, such as in the concept of line charts and bar charts that have complex compound information inside of it. Here I see some compound bar charts, and I can actually filter out content by selecting the labels now. Not only that, on all the reports, on pie charts, bar charts, line charts, you're going to see nice animations occur as we do the content fill of those individual charts. So much more interactive reporting on the end user reporting side across all your sale interfaces. Another big change is the multi-select dropdown. So this is probably the biggest behavioral change of any of the individual components. The multi-select dropdown prior to 17.1 required a two-hand effort to select multiple items. One hand needed to be holding down the control key while the other hand navigated with a mouse to select the items that they wanted. It was a little bit of an obscure, although that is the standard way for multi-select control of the web, it's really, we'll say, bad. So anyways, the selection control now behaves like this, where I go to the drop-down, I see a static drop-down that's going to stay there. I can then select multiple items, and then I can go back and close the drop-down or just continue on filling out the next field using the tab key or the mouse selector. So much more intuitive behavior. It is going to look different though. So if you accommodate a larger screen real estate for the multi-select drop-down, it now only takes that single line of real estate to show all the items that were selected. Going on, of course, all the interfaces now are also going to maintain 508 compliance and WCAG 2.0 compliance. So to make sure that if you do have any compliance requirements for people with disabilities who have trouble reading, there's going to be keyboard navigation. There's going to be different types of ways to navigate the interface other than visually or through a mouse. Although to make sure you are 508 compliant, you need to make sure you take advantage of the full capabilities, such as when I display an image, using the alt tags and different types of tags to label things properly for the screen readers to read those. If you'd like more information on achieving 508 compliance, you can refer to our documentation of how to effectively ensure that you build a sale interface that is 508 compliant or WCAG compliant. We've also adopted a new tempo styling. The first change you're going to notice is right on the login screen. The login screen looks different first. It's going to behave exactly the same, but you have the background styling. So I have that bold color on the left with the neutral color on the right. You can configure those color schemes to match your brand. You can also modify, of course, the logo as we had before. And of course, you have the login screen, which are all using the updated sale components. The entire login screen is also responsive. Now, as you navigate into the interior of the Tempo environment, you're going to notice the emphasis of the accent color. The accent color, which is now configurable in the Tempo branding console under the admin console, you can configure the accent color, which will apply to things like links on the left-hand navigation bar, those section headers of button colors. You can now have much more granular control over the color that's inside the interior of your pages using the accent color configuration. You'll also see updated styling as far as the profile image in the upper right with a circle. You'll also notice the navigation as well as the fonts now match the overall new brand for the Sale Modern UI effort. Next, we have the self-service password recovery. So self-service password recovery allows me to essentially use the forgot password feature. So this feature was available prior only for cloud customers. And those cloud customers, of course, were able to use that forgot password to have a user automatically reset it. Forgot password now is not just only for cloud, but it's also for on-premise and cloud, as well as it's automatically disabled if you use SAML or LDAP for authentication, or if the administrator comes in and manually disables that forgot password feature. So you can control that feature inside the admin console to turn it off or on, or go ahead and just leave it on and you'll have a native forgot password capability. That forgot password capability, by the way, does use a email verification. So it's going to send a temporary password to the user inside their registered email account and then allow them to come in with that temporary password. Next, also inside the Tempo experience, you're going to have a new comment message capability. This is going to be a notification trigger when comments have been added to the post since you last refreshed the entry. So why have this, right? So you have two users looking at a single comment stream. That single comment stream, one user posts something, the other user then posts something as well. If one goes before the other, I have a chance then to review what the other was posting before I actually comment myself. That's to make sure there's no confusion. If I was asking a question, but actually the other person was answering it already, I can see their answer and, hey, save myself some embarrassment from posting a question that had just been answered. So great feature for multi-user collaboration inside a single news post entry. We've also taken some time inside Tempo to enhance the user profile screen. First, the user profile screen has an overall updated styling. You'll notice the application of the new Sail modern UI, like the button controls and fonts, as well as you see the blurb text now is moved to the bottom of the screen. That blurb text now is available to me, of course, to configure, but it's going to show up at the bottom along with all the contact information. Another important change is the addition of a configurable summary view for each user profile. So just like I have a summary page on the records, I can now create a summary page for the user record. That summary view can be anything you want. So I can choose to here say show skills, languages, department. You can configure that as a page of sale with whatever data source you choose to bring it in. And it will display, of course, right in between the banner image and then also the latest news. You'll see that page of sale right there in the middle section. User profile cards have similarly been updated so that if I'm in the overall Tempo environment and I hover over a specific user profile card or in the site's experience, I'll see similar styling updates to the user profile card where I see their banner image, a nice profile image, that follow action, and then all their contact information right below the user profile card as well. Now, going on more to records. Records have also been updated to optimize the screen real estate and make it easier to use FACET filters across the system. So you'll notice right away the big change is that FACET filters have moved from the left-hand navigation to the top-hand navigation inside the system. That top-hand navigation, of course, gives wider screen real estate for things like a record grid view. So if I'm using a record grid view, I can now use edge-to-edge, closer to edge-to-edge real estate for showing all the content I want about that record. This will also automatically apply for record list view. So I'll still see the list view, but that top-hand navigation will still apply for me. Now, also talking about that top-hand navigation, having the drop-down controls you find is much easier to navigate if I have long lists of information. So I can very quickly navigate a long list of information while still not having to scroll up and down the screen, as was the case with the left-hand navigation where we showed lots of content in one continuous left-hand navigation bar. Now, as you navigate inside of a specific record, we also updated the record summary views or the record overall view navigation. Again, the left-hand navigation has gone. There's more screen real estate for a wider record view, so you can use more edge-to-edge real estate, no more left-hand navigation. And all the view controls now are in a top-hand tab-based navigation. So you have the summary, details, order, and of course the default news and related action views, which are available on all records inside the system. Your contextual related actions are still in the upper right-hand corner. They're just adopting the new updated modern UI styling. And of course, down below, you have your specific sale page, which you've designed for that specific record inside the system. And now next, also on records and related actions, you also now have configurable icons for related actions. So currently this only applies to record-related actions. If I go into the record type designer, you're going to notice a new configuration to choose one of our pre-defined icons to associate with this specific actions. This gives a better visual identification of the specific related actions a user might want to navigate to. Those, of course, save you from having a long list of lightning bolts for all those related actions. And of course, that visual indicator is a scalable vector graphic, so it's going to adjust nicely depending on what device you're trying to use. And then finally, the hierarchy browser caching. So at this point, after this little discussion, I'm going to pop in and show some of this in a product demonstration. But the hierarchy browser caching is an important one for making sure there's a nice responsive behavior, not really responsive, I say, but interactive behavior when I do a transactional smart service inside Sale. So if you missed the 2016 announcements, an important new feature we introduced in 2016 was the ability to call transactional smart services, typically reserved inside process, directly inside an expression, either in a rule expression, a web API, or a page of Sale, like an interface here. Now, when I have a transactional write, I want to make sure also that maybe a column browser or tree browser that's traversing those external systems automatically updates as well when a new write to that third-party system has occurred. So this might apply to the document browser or maybe a third-party integration, a data source I'm navigating from one of these components. So let's go ahead and exit out my PowerPoint here. Going to log in. So again, to walk through some of those features that we talked about, let's talk about first that login screen. Of course, the login screen has that forgot password feature. I have the new branding as I hit sign in. I have that sign in feature apply. So now I'm signing in. Here I just happen to default it to my user profile as my user start page. As you go back to news, you can see some of the updated styling across the system. There's a question about that configuration of the accent color. So if I want to go inside of here, maybe change an accent color or change some type of attribute, right there in the branding, you're going to see a new configuration called the accent color. So let's go ahead and define a custom configuration here. And I'm going to just say FFDD55 and choose something. So this yellow instead. Hit Save Changes. As I go back, let's go ahead and say, I'm going to sign out and see, oh, look at that. Now I have this very bright canary yellow as my accent color. You can see where it's applying, like checkbox actions, link controls, the button control are also starting to adopt that, that accent color. As I go inside the element, I see the accent color then also not only apply to like things like the tab selections where I need to highlight certain selectors, the navigation. I chose a really bad color here. I should have chose something probably much darker. But anyways, that's the idea that you can modify now that much more interior color to represent your brand throughout the entire product. This is bothering me, so I'm going to go ahead and change it back. Let's go back to my default. Hit save. Hit refresh. Let's see if it's going to refresh my accent color. There we go, back to the default. Go ahead to records. Now from inside the records view, let's go into one of these interior records like customer service requests. And right away, you're going to notice that, again, that much more wider screen real estate for showing all the content about my record inside the system. As I move to the top pane, you have, of course, a search. If I want to search for, say, 3851, then very quickly search maybe for a specific element inside the system. If I need to filter to, say, show me all the elements where they need help with an order, very quickly filter down to a specific set. I want to see ones of high priority where they need help with an order. Go ahead and say, click on that individual customer now, because it maybe get to the customer dashboard directly from that service request. As I'm in the customer dashboard, if I click on that again, you saw that kind of nice animation with the pie chart and the grid control. So when we do the content fill, you're going to see that very visual, nice animation inside of here. If I did have a multi-dimensional one, you can see I can just turn off that one quantity element, but it's much more compelling if there's multiple values inside that bar chart. And of course, there's no label on the pie to show. But inside of here, you see, again, the left-hand navigation of the views move up to the top with my details, orders, all the different elements. And of course, there's related actions, which I've applied now custom icons to be much more clear. If I need a new request, I have a hand, a new order, a shopping cart, update it, a pencil and paper. Let's go ahead to that new order element to start filling out maybe a new order inside of here. Now, if you've downloaded the Appian Case Management Framework, our sample application that we ship with, you'll see that this is the case management application, just as it is out of the box, but it's been updated with a 17.1 styling. So if you're familiar with it before, you can see the exact same behavior as we had before, just the button controls are different, as well as the overall kind of styling has been applied. So my accent color on all these elements, easier click targets and all the sections to contract and expand those. So going back, let's talk a little bit more though about that tree browser component and see exactly what that was all about. So let's navigate away from this. Going to go into that Appian CMF, which is of course available from the Appian App Market if you'd like to try out for yourself. Now, I, of course, built this tree browser component to just demonstrate this one feature. The tree browser here is going across my document, my internal Appian document management system as an example use case. Of course, you can have that column browser or tree browser go across really any data source you want. Now, let's say, though, I need to do a transactional write to that data source, and I want to make sure the tree browser also has that update. So I'm going to go ahead and create a subfolder. Third time is a charm. That subfolder is going to be called Third Time is a Charm. I have this button on my far right-hand side to create that element, and boom, there it is. So let's just explain what happened there. That's not just a normal sale behavior where I update a process variable, or it's not a process variable, sorry, but a local variable inside the sale expression. That is a transactional write to a document management system that's going to create that new folder. And then once that transactional write's complete, it's going to tell the page of sale, hey, I'm done, and then go ahead and refresh any tree browser or column browser to make sure that it properly displays that content that was just put into that target system. So again, a great feature to make sure that we don't have any unnecessary refreshes or confusion from users wondering if that transaction was actually committed or not. So let's go back to Keynote. Let's talk about Sites now for a little while. So Sites has a lot of little improvements all over. The first improvement here is a site-to-site navigator. This does only apply to sites. It does not apply to Tempo. So inside Sites, if you have multiple sites, the users will see this little drop-down icon, that little kind of collection, looks like a Rubik's Cube or collection of squares. That's going to show them all the site applications that they have access to. So if they don't have access to it, it will not appear inside that site list. The reason for this is quick navigation between sites. So if you have a more sites-based user experience, again, the users can quickly navigate from customer feedback to customer service requests to order management, all from that site navigator. In addition, Sites also has full web responsive behavior. So that means that if I'm looking at a site with a new modern UI inside a desktop, and then I open up an iPad, then I open up in an iPhone, it is a web view, but it's going to be responsive. It's going to automatically adjust to the screen real estate for each one of those pages. So this is a great alternative if you're using BlackBerry devices or Windows Phone devices, or you don't want to use the Appian native mobile application. You can simply use the web application across Appian Sites to get that nice experience on all the different devices. They can see things like the navigational structure moves from the top hand to the bottom hand for the tablets and phones. It'll automatically adjust everything to fit nicely inside those screens. Another improvement to Sites is going to be clicking on the title of a single page site to automatically refresh. A lot of you who had maybe single page sites were building in refresh actions inside the page of sale unnecessarily. Now you don't need to do that anymore. Simply click on the title of the single page of sale. That will automatically refresh that one page and reset all the local variables to their default state. And also in Sites and Embedded, we have this new loading bar being applied. So inside Tempo, you're still going to see that yellow working indicator. But inside Sites and Embedded, we now have this more subtle styling, which is going to be kind of like a very thin progress bar on the full top-hand screen, showing any type of background action that's loading inside the system. So working indicator does not display anymore inside Sites and Embedded. Working indicator does show inside Tempo, as I said before. Finally, let's take a look at sites before I progress. So pop out of the PowerPoint. Let's pop back over here and go to one of my sites. There we go. So first thing, you see that working indicator. I'm not sure if you caught it. I'm going to click on another thing, but it's very subtle. See it right there going across the screen. It's showing me that something's going on, and there it goes and loads. So much more subtle behavior of the working indicator, showing that kind of background processing is occurring. You all see the addition of this new Sites Navigator. So if you have a multi-site experience, the users can very easily navigate between, say, their investigation site, completely different look and feel, back to customer service requests, over to order management. So they can very easily navigate between all their sites experiences inside that one navigator option. As well, before, as I mentioned, Sites is fully responsive. So if I adjust this down, let me go ahead to drag my screen back up here. So now we have the desktop view for the site. I'm going to go ahead and keep shrinking this. Now we have the tablet view. Let's go ahead and maybe drill into one of these, maybe like click on a new order. So you see it's adjusting everything. As I go into, say, I want to kick off a new order. Well, I need to shrink this down even more. So let's go ahead down to maybe a phone. So now we have the phone type view inside of here. It's going to make sure we try to fit everything as best as possible inside the screen real estate that's presented to the user. If I come back up, that's going to be desktop just like this. So nice web responsive behavior, multi-column, so automatically go into single column, adjust for the screen real estate. So let's talk a little bit now about embedded. Embedded also has a very large background architectural update. So if you're using embedded today, it's very important to know that there's a brand new JavaScript file to reference and start using the modern UI embedded capabilities. Highly recommend adopting and switching over to the new modern UI capabilities. We'll talk about some of the new features. Very first thing to know, though, it has a simplified theming architecture, which we'll cover in more detail here. And as well, as I said, there's a brand new JavaScript file. So you want to go Suite, Tempo, UI, Sail Client, Embedded, Bootstrap, No Cache.js, and then you always want to have that ID equals Appian Embedded. Now, another big change is how I apply embedded themes to the overall Sail components inside your custom web page. You no longer apply the theme identifier inside the HTML tag itself, where it has Appian task or Appian action. You now apply the theme identifier at the JavaScript reference, and that will apply that theme to all embedded components on a single page. So make sure that a user or if a customer has a page with multiple embedded pages, they'll all adopt that same embedded theme inside that UI. So next, new configs. So if you're using embedded Sail today, you might have noticed that there is a very large set of customizable configurations to create themes for embedded Sail. In our analysis of usage, we found that it was way too much, and there's very low adoption across our customer base of really configuring all those customizable elements to the look and feel of your embedded. So we took a look at what customers were really applying and boiled it down to the bare essence of what you need to make sure you have a brand match between your custom website and the embedded Appian Sail content. And that's really just 4 things. You want to be able to control the font. Now, the font can be controlled in 2 ways. The font family you can just define, like here I have sans serif, or you can define the web font style URL. The web font style URL can be loaded from a CSS resource. We're not going to read the full CSS. We're only going to read the font face inside that CSS to find out the font family you want to apply if you have a custom web font. As well, you can control the base font size. So that's going to define kind of the base size of all your fonts, adjusted appropriately if you have a header or a larger font for different types of section headers. And then, of course, you have 2 color configurations. What do you want the background color to be? And what do you want the accent color to be? The accent colors we covered before applies to the button controls, the milestone component, all those other controls you can configure now with a custom color config. Inside, we also have an important update to embedded that it now is on parity with the advanced task features of Sites and Tempo. So whenever you use the embedded environment, you can now use reassignment actions, task acceptance actions, rejection actions, all the advanced kind of task management actions that you had in those other environments have now brought forward inside this header right there that's going to show you all the controls right above the task inside the system. And of course, if you go into the task properties in the process modeler, you have the ability to disable reassignment, disable those as you see fit inside the system. Also with embedded, if you have a single page with multiple embedded UIs, prior to 17.1, there was a separate authentication window which will pop up for all those embedded UIs. That's no longer the case with Appian 17.1. If we detect multiple UIs, we'll prompt the user for a single login that will appear in an overlay div control on top of your custom website to prompt the user to log into the system that will authenticate all the embedded UIs in that single page. So much more streamlined authentication of managing the authentication to embedded UIs in your custom web page. So that's it for end user. The big theme, as you can see, is the modern UI initiative, but let's go into details on the designer experience now. 3 nice updates first to the Quick Apps system. So Quick Apps, as you may have seen from last year, is a rapid composition environment for starting off an application or enabling a citizen developer to contribute apps to your system. Now there's a minor update here. The status and priority fields, which are part of the Quick App Designer, can now be turned off or removed from your Quick Apps design. So you'll see those little red X buttons available by the status and priority to remove those fields. As well, inside the Quick Apps Designer, you now have both the owners and collaborators field for this application. The owners field is new, so the owners field says that these people can go into the Quick Apps Designer and modify this Quick App. The collaborators are the people who can use this Quick App. So big differentiation there. You can now share the responsibility of administering the Quick App across other users inside the system, as long as they are also Quick Apps designers. And then finally, there's an update to the default task report that's generated by the Appian system to also show a filter for open tasks sent by me. So currently there's the My Open Tasks, which show me all my tasks. And now you can also switch over to Open Tasks Sent by Me to track tasks that I sent to other people to make sure they're being resolved on time. Now, of course, if you'd like to adopt some of these new features, like the Open Tasks by Me or removing the status and priority, simply go back to the Quick Apps Designer. If you go walk back through the Quick Apps Designer, make those modifications and republish it, all your content will be migrated, and of course, adopt these new changes once you've upgraded to 17.1. Now, going to the full designer experience, there's a speed up here. Overall searching, filtering, selecting, kind of working inside the Appian Designer, navigating all the individual objects of your application have all been improved up to 25% faster. So hopefully you notice a much snappier, faster behavior when users are navigating or your designers are navigating between all the different objects and trying to work efficiently inside the Appian Designer experience. To go along with this, we also have a new filter by applications on last modified date and time. So it's going to actually look at the internal components and say, well, what was the last component inside this application that was modified, and allow you to see which application someone's been working on most recently and by who. As well, there's a new link called the Runtime Data Link. The Runtime Data Link goes to the old /designer interface, which has now been isolated to be largely used for managing your runtime data inside the system. So what happens when you click on Runtime Data? It's going to switch over to the old designer experience where you can navigate your home, which is access to your MySQL database, your people structure, processes, rules, runtime documents, and system configurations are now available, as well as the alerts monitoring available inside this runtime data console, which is, of course, the old Appian Designer. We also improved constant editing inside the system. So constants before, when you tried to edit a constant, it will pop into the old design time experience. Now there's a constant editor for all constants inside the main Appian Designer. It's also a little easier to use. For example, if I have long lists of values, like a text value here showing me all these different text properties, I no longer have that single line with the semicolon delimited line. I can now more easily read that and say I have just line separators showing me each of the elements inside that text array. So much easier to navigate as well. And if you are very keen-eyed, you're going to notice one additional field here, which has been added to the constants configuration, which of course is environment-specific constants. So what are environment-specific constants? These are constants that you use as kind of triggers or settings that apply to a specific environment. If you have a dev, test, production environment, you might be capturing something like the base URL. Of course, the URL for your dev, test, and production environment are different. So when you import your dev system to your test or production system, you don't want to overwrite your base URL in your production system with that specific constant because it pointed to your dev server. So to override this, you want to go in and check those constants to say this is environment specific. If anyone ever imports this constant from a test or dev system to my prod system, I don't want to overwrite it with whatever data was in test. So that's going to tell it, do not overwrite this constant with whatever was in test. So how do I actually set that in a package or automated import? So you're going to use an import customization file. That import customization file you can create as a separate package file to go along with the import that says, when I import into production, make sure that production, these constants are set to these values, the base URL, the date, the text, time, whatever you want. This does only apply to constants of specific type, which is Boolean, date, date and time, number, decimal, integer, text, and time, as you can see right there. Now let's talk a little bit more about the Appian Process Modeler. Appian Process Modeler, probably a lot of you have been enjoying the new Chrome, Safari, Firefox experience of the Process Modeler, but you are using it in beta. We're happy to announce that the Process Modeler with cross-browser functionality is fully GA. And if you notice, we actually added one additional icon here, which is Internet Explorer 11. So Internet Explorer 11, if you've been using the Process Modeler prior to 17.1, it actually opened up in the old Process Modeler. The old Process Modeler now is gone. The new Process Modeler is in place and is compliant with IE 11, IE Edge, Safari, Firefox, and Chrome. We also took the time to introduce great new features such as lassoing. So I can go ahead and use my mouse to lasso certain objects, grab those items, and then move them around all in one action. Much easier if I'm doing kind of bulk movement of elements inside my Process Modeler. Another great improvement we also added is new smart services. So there's two brand new ones, update group and delete group. Those, of course, actions allow you to update group membership or remove a group entirely. And we also updated the create group smart service as well with new property configurations. Since these are new smart services as well, you can also invoke these from expressions. So if you want to have updating a group just right from a SAIL interface or from a web API, you can also invoke these specific smart services from those SAIL interactions to maybe automatically add users to a group without going through a process. As well, from it comes to smart services, the invoke SAP BAPI smart service has also been improved with a new parameter called commit transaction. Prior to Appian 17.1, if you want to invoke a BAPI invocation from Appian, it required two steps. You would invoke the BAPI call to tell it what you want to do, and then you invoke the commit transaction step. So it's kind of always a two-step configuration for working with SAP. Now you can have a single transaction. You can simply come into that commit transaction as a Boolean flag, true or false, and then they'll automatically do the commit transaction immediately after I do the BAPI invocation. Along with this, there's also a function, the SAP invoke with commit function, which also allows you to do that multi-step transaction in a single interaction instead of just a two-step interaction. So also with the Appian Process Modeler, a small enhancement to indicate that when I have a start form in place, there's going to be a visual indicator on the start node saying that there is a form here. It's a great feature. A lot of times I don't know if there's a start form. I go into the process properties and no. Now there's a nice visual indicator inside the Process Modeler. It says there is a start form here, and then I can go into process properties to discover exactly what that start form is. Now, one of the best features probably to be included is a deep integration between the Process Modeler and the Interface Designer. If you've been using SAIL forms with a Process Modeler, you might be familiar with writing expressions. You need to go look up the rule, then you need to map the properties of the individual inputs of the SAIL expression to my process variables. A bit cumbersome, a bit not very low-codey, we'll say. So that's all gone away. We now have the ability to directly not only create, but also edit interfaces from the Process Modeler with a simple interface mapping between the two environments. So let's go ahead and maybe fire up the Process Modeler, take a look at some of these items in action. So there we go. Going to go into, let's see, an existing process model. So again, full GA support for Google Chrome. Don't have to worry about bugs or issues. It's fully supported. If I want to do that multi-select, I simply lasso just like this. I select multiple items and move it all in one action. Much easier to make your process models look pretty without going to too much effort. If I want to go into see some of that integration with the Appian Interface Designer, let's go ahead to one of our existing forms here. Now this is a CMF, so I already built a integration from this process model to the interface. As you can see now, it's translated that over to say, well, you're calling this specific interface, and here's the properties of the interface. And now I'm interested in modifying this interface, so I can just say, yeah, I'd like to edit it right here. So just like that, I popped into the interface designer. I can go ahead and say maybe add some additional inputs. I'm going to add an empty input just like this, hit save. And now if I go back, I can refresh, and now I see that new empty input right here. So I can do a quick mapping, say, yes, I want to populate that with notes. Or if I need to do some type of conversion, like here's my activity class parameter, I'm going to say I want to uppercase my notes and then apply it. So I can still apply those rule functions to manipulate data before I actually send it to the Appian interface as well. Now, if you're using complex expressions or actually embedded the sale definition inside the process modeler, you're going to see that behavior right here come over as a write an expression. So you'll still have the ability to write an expression inside of here if you want to more tightly bind that sale interface right inside the process modeler, or have some very complex logic that can't be represented inside the simple mapping interface. That can be represented right here as well. So that is a great new feature, of course. And of course, if you want to explore some of those new features, connectivity, that invoke SAP BAPIs right there, identity management features, create group, update group, you'll see all those now represented inside the new process modeler. So let's go back to one last feature of the Appian process modeler as well is being able to hide the save button for sale tasks. So this simply means that, well, let's talk a little about why we did this. The save button often created confusion if I had a button that I designed in Sale on my screen for the task that said save, as well as a button control on the task bar that said save. So the customer saying, or the end user saying, which save do I hit? Do I hit the save that you designed, inside your own implementation, or the default save, which allows me to save a draft of an in-progress task? To limit or prevent that confusion, you can now go into the interface properties, the forms tab here, and simply uncheck that, allow users to save a draft in progress tasks. So that simply means that if I uncheck that save button that we apply in the task bar, that will disappear. They won't have that save button anymore. And then the users will only see the buttons that you implement inside your sale definition. So some more conversation here about interface properties. So interface properties are now accessible from the properties menu instead of clicking on the title of the interface. So to get to things like to view the name, edit the description, the folder location, if the interface is going to be available offline, you simply go to the settings menu and go to properties, and you'll see a nice menu to modify all those elements. And as well, if you'd like to see the version history of interfaces and expression rules, you no longer need to go to the old designer experience. You simply go to the settings menu, you'll have a new element called versions, and I see all the historical versions. Now, two things we've done here. Of course, if you click on the name of any of those old versions, it'll instantly open up that version so you can see what it looked like in prior releases. As well, we show the description field here. The intent is, if you want your developers to create notes around what they modified in each version, use the description field. Go ahead and modify the description field. That will be version controlled as well with that specific interface or rule. And of course, that can quickly browse the description to see exactly what changed, why they changed what inside the whole system. We also now allow you to browse record fields inside the record type designer. So no longer need to memorize your field names or use the RF bang with a dropdown and try to, again, think about what name it is to get the right pop-up. You have a simple, intuitive record type field navigator. As I go to that dropdown, I'll see all the different fields. I can say even navigate to sub-elements inside of here, so shipping address, sub-address, to make me apply that to a user filter or other type of record properties. You can also now create CDTs from database tables. This is definitely going to warrant a demonstration because it's very cool. Before, if you want to create a Appian data type that was mapped off of an existing data store, a database table, or view, you had to go in and create an XML schema definition of that data type, representing JPA annotations to map the data type to your existing relational database. In summary, you needed a developer. You needed a developer to come in and create the XML schema definition. No longer. So let's actually see this in action here. I'm going to pop over again to my experience. Let's go ahead and create a new data type. And as we create a new data type, you'll see this new option here to say create from a database table or view. So I select that. I'm going to see all the registered data sources. I'm going to select one of my data sources and go down and say, you know, I really like to come in and grab the case app, case history one. Hit continue. And boom, there we go. It built the data type for me. This is a preview now. So not only is it going to build a data type, but it's actually going to do the mapping to the data store and the entity name. So it's going to do that kind of multi-step action all in one. It's going to not only create the data type, but all the mappings to the backend data source. You'll also see a number of new fields being shown here, such as the column type, the key, more important fields that typically are inside the XML schema definition that didn't necessarily see inside the Appian data type designer. As I hit create and edit, I now see it's going to actually create that data type, exactly what it was, publish it to the data store, all in one action, and now I can come and start working with it. And of course, if I modify this, I can actually start modifying the table right from here. You'll see that the length is represented right here, as well as the array. Now, what happens if I come and create a custom data type from scratch? Let's say I'm going to create one test2, create and edit. Now, as I go ahead and create this, you're going to see some new fields available to me as I modify this data type. First, let's go ahead and add a field. That first field is going to be maybe the ID. It's going to be a number. And I have the integer as well as the primary key. So that's going to be, say, a primary key inside of here. And now I want, say, the text name. That text name, then I can now modify the length of the text element right here. So I'm going to make that, say, 500 characters long. And as well, if I come and say, well, I need to create a relationship to a customer. So that's going to be associated to a customer. I'm going to say, let's go to case app customer right there. And says, hey, I recognize that that's going to be a foreign key relationship right away. Now, how do I want that relationship to be represented? Is that going to be a one-to-one, one-to-many? I can now also configure that specific foreign key relationship right here to determine exactly the each child can have more than one parent value. That's that one-to-many. Updates at a parent value should also update associate child value, so it's going to cascade the updates. I know the name of the columns, this field in the database, so what column names I want to actually map that to. So main point of all these new modifications to the data type designer and discovery, if I go back to Keynote very quickly, no more XML schema definition annotations. So you no longer need to be a master of JPA annotations to modify things. Really, the bulk of what people want to do in creating these complex schema relationships, configuring the column sizes, those foreign key relationships, can now all be done inside this point-and-click interface inside the Appian product. Another important improvement to the interface design experience, as well as when someone is already editing something. So this is a common scenario when you have multiple people modifying the same interface at the same time, and then someone's overriding someone else's work. That will no longer occur inside the Appian Interface Designer. Just like the process model designer, there's a locking mechanism. So if I open it up and I'm editing it, I will lock that. That lock will essentially be edited only by me. If someone else comes in, they're going to be presented with this message. Someone's already editing. Here's Karen Jones. If I hover over Karen Jones' name there, I can see all of her contact card information. As well, I can contact that person to see more information or maybe talk about their edits. Application and process model pickers for testing as well have been introduced. So a lot of times I create interfaces or I create expression rules which require mappings to process models or inputs that are based on process models or applications. Instead of having to figure out an expression or look up the process model UUID or ID value, you can now just have a nice intuitive process model picker right there to say, I want to test this with this process model to see how that rule is actually going to run or the interface is going to run. So inside of here as well, we also updated the plugin data types. So when it comes to custom data types for Java objects, you no longer need to delete the CDTs before deploying the plugins. So if you are doing CDT development inside Java plugins, again, note that extra step of deleting CDTs no longer necessary. Simply pop in your plugin, it'll hot deploy, overwrite your CDT, and you're good to go. So last few set, let's talk about administrator. I'm already over time. I got 30 seconds left before the top of the hour. Custom links on sign-in page. So this allows you to modify the link behavior on the login sign-in page. So why would you want this? If you have terms of service, if you want to turn off the forgot password feature, as we talked about before, and maybe enable, say, your own custom forgot password procedure, you can modify that link behavior, add a number of links inside of here. And how those appear, again, you'll see those appear right below the forgot password element with the text that you define right there as well. We can also now disable the mobile app prompt. So the mobile app prompt means that when a user comes in from an iPhone or Android device, looks at the login page from a web screen, they're going to be prompted to say, well, are you sure you want to use the web view? Because there's a mobile app as well. If I want to focus my users on the web view, you can now go into the admin console, check this box to disable the app download banner, and they will no longer see that prompt to go download the app from the App Store. They'll simply see that web experience, or they'll have maybe access to an app that you hot deployed to the system using our maybe good deployment or other technology. We also introduced real-time virus scanning for Appian Cloud. So real-time virus scanning will automatically apply to documents that are under 25 megabytes and uploaded from news, sites, embedded, social tasks, the admin console, or Appian Designer. Where virus scanning does not apply is really all the legacy interfaces. That means from Portal, from the Designer interface where you have the raw document management. Virus scanning will not apply there. It's only applying where there's the new modern interfaces. This is also a cloud-only feature. If you want to disable it, you now have a file upload configuration to enable or disable real-time virus scanning if you so choose on the system. And of course, what does that look like when a user actually applies a virus scan? You'll see that scanning for viruses apply every single time a user uploads something. It will automatically indicate to the user that it is doing that virus scan on the system. We also, minor change here, allow the period character to be supported in usernames. So if you're creating service accounts or if you know someone who has a period in their first name, I personally do not, so I had trouble thinking of an example here. But you have service.account, February.2016, perfectly legitimate now. You can add those periods inside the first and last name fields. And finally, last two slides, long engine transaction warning logs. There's a brand new log file, what we call the .l files. If a transaction took longer than 60 seconds for the engine to process, it'll be recorded inside this log file. And to go along with that, engine system.csv will contain columns that track the number of memory spikes and long transaction.l files. So it's going to make sure that I have that summarized view of memory spikes and long transactions inside that one engine system CSV file as well. And finally, a reminder, I talked about this in 16.3. If you are on-premise customer and still using TLS 1.0, please stop using TLS 1.0. Please keep your system secure. You should be upgrading your system to TLS 1.1 or 1.2. We are going to be officially dropping support in May of 2017, so you'll no longer have a system working on TLS 1.0 with the Appian product. If you're not familiar with TLS, this is the encryption protocol between your clients and servers. We want to make sure we're using the latest and greatest encryption protocol, making sure that you have the best encrypted system possible. If you're an Appian Cloud customer, don't even worry about this. It's already taken care of. Appian Cloud will automatically upgrade to the latest TLS security certification and make sure your system is ideally secure given the latest technologies. And that was the product, but there's an important change to product documentation. Some of you actually discovered this already. If you happen to go to Google or Bing and go ahead and type Appian 17.1 release notes, you're going to get a fully indexed search across all of our documentation. there's full anonymous public access now to all of our product docs. So just go ahead and Google Appian 17.1 release notes. First release you'll hit right there is our product documentation. And of course, you could Google sale recipes, progress bar component, knowledge base repositories, process modeler introduction. You can Google all that information. It'll all be available right there with no authentication for the public to consume. If you would like to access documentation, though, for older versions of Appian, all those will require authentication behind our secure form experience. And last point, if you weren't aware, we do have Appian World. If you missed the introduction, April 3rd through 5th. If you would like to learn more about 17.1 or get a preview of 17.2, sign up today for Appian World on the 3rd to 5th in San Francisco at the Hyatt Regency. Look forward to seeing everyone there. And as I mentioned before, if you haven't registered already, you have about 6 weeks, I'd say, left to take advantage of the registration. Otherwise, it most likely will close out. So please go ahead and take a look at it already. Get your travel plans set and look forward to seeing you there. Thanks a lot, and hope to also see you at the next Product Announcer webinar in Q2. Have a great day.